We've been hosting the Food Indaba first back in 2014 above Truth Coffee with a bunch of really interesting people that we met in our early food systems journey, just telling their stories. And now we took a hiatus of a couple of years, and now this is the 6th year in a row that we've done the Food Indaba, and it's really been growing year after year. It was conceived of as a way of bringing a lot of the diversity of involvement, perspectives, experiences together, because the food system is as complicated as life, right? Everybody eats, everybody's involved, everyone has a stake and a voice and a view and a level of expertise. So how do we make sense of this thing that connects to everything? And so to be able to hold that complexity and hold the diversity and to have these conversations that can go deep with people who care and can do something about it, but not just people like me who are food systems nerds or academics, but whatever our lens is, if it's cooking and eating or shopping or waste or whatever it might be. And so we are now at a point where 2 weeks of programs with 28 events happening. Last year we had 535 attendees, so we're not filling the convention center with 6,000 people. It's a lot of events like this, 60 people in a room with the right 60 people who've come here for a reason, have a lot to contribute, and will take away a lot, including the relationships they build. So it's that sort of thing. And we also find ourselves in the remarkable position of having a media reach last year of over 58 million as our audience. So what we recognize is this is also a platform for communications, for raising awareness, understanding, motivating people to connect, to take action, and hopefully that's what's going to happen, not just through media, but here in the room. But we're not reaching 58 million people to sell tickets, we're reaching 58 million and beyond so that we can keep food systems issues on the agenda, that we can help people address certain kind of conventional wisdom that may not be substantiated by the facts. And I'm sure all of you working in waste will have your thoughts about that. And so I would really encourage you to share what you think some of the messages ought to be, or some of the insights that come, either with some of the interviews that you might be asked to do, or with the speakers or whomever, because that's how we take this forward. And we want to be able to use this platform to really create the kind of momentum and critical mass that makes space for and drives change. So that's what we're all about, and we're very fortunate to have had Heather and the team from Solve the Waterfront as supporter. I think this is the 5th year, and to have that long-term vision that we share about, how one uses one's resources to make change happen. It's been a great partnership, and we're very grateful. I just briefly want to say, finally, that we are also looking ahead for the next 5 years worth of themes. And so this year it's AI in the food system, and I think the links with AI and waste are fascinating, and there are great opportunities for waste avoidance and use and so on, and hopefully we'll have some conversation about some elements of that. But AI isn't just about technology, it's also about data and knowledge, and whose knowledge, and who are knowledge holders, and how do we generate knowledge, and all of that kind of thing. So it's a very rich and complex topic that is, I think, part of all of our lives now. So just for those who are interested in Food Indabas to come, please reach out. We'll be sharing this information more, and we build this through the ideas and energies of those who choose to show up and are making things happen. So please don't be shy, and I wish all of us an excellent panel. Thank you for being here.
I've been part of the V&A Waterfront team for the last 15 years. For 12 of the 15, actually even a bit more, of the 15 years, I led our waste management on site, and so our topic of the day is very close to my heart. And it is really, for me, an honor to be part of the conversation. And also just to note that this isn't just a gathering, it is a conversation. It is recognizing that food waste, and when we talk specifically about post-consumer food waste, it's not just wasting food, it's wasting resources. It's wasted water, energy, fuel, labor, and not to add the fact that we do face an issue around hunger and poverty in our country. And so this conversation is important because it highlights a commitment to preserving our resources and to support communities and also to help us nurture circular ecosystems. Within the V&A Waterfront, we are not just a destination, we are an ecosystem developer and we nurture our ecosystems equally. As was mentioned, we have over 100 restaurants in our precinct, we have over 800 tenants, 13 hotels, 2,000 residents that live in our space, and so we really do operate a mini city with 25 million visits. And so our commitment to sustainability, to reduce our carbon emissions and to manage our waste responsibly is a commitment that we really take seriously. And so our key pillars for waste management is separation at source, incentives, and also education and awareness. And I'm very proud to say that in the last year alone, we've managed to divert 67% of all our waste from landfill. That includes 200 tons on average of organic waste per month that was turned into valuable compost. But I do want to note that it came with a huge commitment and making sure that your partners that work alongside you are as serious about diverting waste from landfill as you are. Again, I'm exceptionally proud of the work that we have done, and I'm looking forward to just the discussion today, that we could understand what are the key challenges, that we could share some of our key learnings, and that we could build forward on making sure that we do not waste food any longer. Thank you.
Also, it's very inspiring what I've found to see what is actually happening. You know, like a trial we are doing where there's a container with black soldier flies eating the organic waste, those black soldier flies being fed to chickens and the chickens being farmed. You know, that's a circularity thing just starting to hatch. Excuse the pun. But I think, you know, just doing some research and finding out there are so many like circular economy case studies out there internationally and even in Africa. There's amazing things happening in Africa to just sort of open your mind as to different things that are possible. Thanks.
I think the thing is to start somewhere, eat everything on your plate, don't throw it away, and just separate. If you separate it, you create value in the waste, and then we can actually do something. And for goodness sake, just phone a recycling company and sign up now. There you go.
Just like I said, it starts with small steps. Do the small steps right. In my own experience, I've seen it. Sometimes it's harder with the older people, but it's easier with the kids. So I've seen with my kids, they've grown up learning. We've been making compost at home for years, and we use it in our little garden. We grow Portuguese cabbage, we grow spinach and onions and spring onions, and then we use those things in the things that we cook at home. And all my kids cook now. Cooking's in our family, but they see that circular thing, and I've already seen it with my son, with my granddaughter. He's started doing the same thing in their house. So I think it starts from grassroots, and maybe, I don't know if the city's doing anything with schools already, but maybe that is something we can look at. Thank you.
Yes, so thank you. Yeah, I've mentioned us, we're trialing, piloting, testing AI on one of our conveyor belts to identify most commonly found items, also to have deeper understanding of contamination. But I know within the industry, and you're in luck, because I mean, if I just look around in the room, there's at least 2 experts or people who work with it daily. For instance, in the market right now, you have what they call food digester systems, for instance, that converts food waste more like into grey water. And they're introducing AI there, that whenever you put something into that unit that is not meant to be there, like plastic or anything else, that it will trigger an alarm just based on AI that could recognize, you know, the chemical makeup of the product that goes in there. So these means and ways of going around it. I also am excited. Our future plans is to build a waste to energy plant, and they're already also looking at integrating AI on the feeder conveyors to recognize products or the material that shouldn't go in that could stop the belt. And then when we talk about AI in my reference, and I recognize, that I'm probably one of the I want to say older generations around here, so AI to me might mean something different to you, but I think just in general, keeping track and analytics of the waste that you generate and what you consume. And again, we're close to it, but for any freestanding restaurant or even for a household, I invite you to look at your information, track and monitor what you generate, how much of it you generate, because most certainly for us even, just by doing the analytics, so we do full characterization studies of the waste for an individual tenant to help them better understand what are the most commonly found items. In our organics, for instance, we know that chopsticks, straws, hair nets, and rags are probably some of the most problematic items that we find. So when we talk AI, even just information like that for us is quite critical in terms of how we engage, how we make decisions, how we plan, how we move forward. So I think this is actually the exciting bit of the waste industry. For years, sustainability communities have been focused on energy and on water, and I think finally there's been a movement towards waste as well, and I'm really excited about just seeing how we move forward and how that gets integrated. And on a side note as well, for instance, in our space, we've collaborated with some of our tenants in the fishing industry. So we've installed catchment nets over the stormwater inlets into our harbour, and so we're analysing that waste as well to get a better understanding of what are the most commonly found items. And in collaboration with the Two Oceans Aquarium Foundation and one of the universities, they're now looking into even, for instance, if you commonly find box straps, plastic box straps, that they could look at the chemical makeup of even those box straps to track it back to the producer.
Yeah, there is also a plan to increase the number of drop-offs. It is also one of those things where nobody wants. The minute you mention the word waste, anything, people freak out. We tried to set up a recycling facility in near Colombo, like under one of the bridges there, and we just got shut down by the District 6 community and all of these people. After 4 years of environmental impact assessment, we just gave up. So it's not always easy to set up a new drop-off, but that is the plan. I think there are about 15 new ones on the capital budget at the moment.
I've mainly dealt with commercial kitchens and restaurants, hotels. It often comes down to cost. Landfilling is cheaper. Now, we do have a privilege of living in Cape Town, which is the highest landfill cost is 900 Rand a tonne now. So what has happened is that when we're talking about costs, especially for a business, the reluctance is economic. And then again, the effort of having multiple bins, space in your kitchen, that's always the big thing, it's too much effort. So those tend to be the points. If we have a high landfill, we can actually create economic space for alternatives.
Waste production per household has so many variables associated with it. Even one household will produce such a varying amount of waste within 1 month. So it's not like I can say flats produce more or flats produce less. But generally speaking, in terms of the way we've structured our tariff policy in response to people that live in flats generally tend to produce less than people in individual households. So we've given blocks of flats the opportunity to actually, and this is something, if any of you guys are in a body corporate or something, if you're in a block of flats, for example, 100 flats, you can go down to 33 bins without having to prove any recycling or anything. You can just return all the rest of the bins and pay less, your body corporate can pay less. And then if you start recycling in your complex and you gather data, and you send the city the data of the recycling that you're doing, then you could even motivate to reduce those bins further. Because the city has realized that blocks of flats tend to produce less in general. But having said that, it's very varied with individual households. So it's a very difficult question actually. It's not an exact science waste.
I will always say that waste has been my eternal nemesis at the V&A Waterfront. I recall when I first joined the team, my goal was to divert 30% of waste consistently from landfill. And even then at times it was quite hard. Our greatest challenge is and will always be that we are not in control of the waste where it is generated. And so separation at source is probably the most important thing. I am also inclined to put the blame a little bit on the recycling market, so to speak, because I think 10-15 years ago when waste was recognized as a commodity, there was high value associated with paper and plastic and cardboard. And so everybody said, well, you need to start is with recycling. But we went backwards, or we went the wrong way around. If we started saying you should start with organics, everything else would have fallen into place, and we've seen the results. And so a good couple of years ago still, our average organic waste from landfill was about 20 tons, and our recycling was about 140 tons. And about 2.5 years ago, we really intensified our initiatives to improve separation at source. So we started with our bucket campaign. It was a cheap 5-litre ice cream bucket. We put stickers on all of those. We issued it to all our food tenants and said, whatever you do, if you could use these buckets and put food waste into these buckets in your various prepped kitchen areas, that would help us tremendously. We reinvented our training material. We issued for all our tenants training, education posters, awareness campaigns. We do kitchen audits. We keep on training kitchen staff, and when new tenants come on board, especially in the food and beverage industry, we make sure that they are also on board with our waste separation initiatives. And slowly but surely we saw an improvement where separation at source in some kitchens started with almost 0%, where some of them now do 65% of all their waste separated at source, and which is again to be celebrated. As Melanie has mentioned, the average restaurant in peak season could generate close to 20 tons of waste in a month, so that is significant. And so what we've seen with separation at source, apart from the movement there, we also operate our own on-site waste recovery and recycling center. And I mean, Darius and his team have done amazing work in making sure that they separate furthermore at our waste recovery center. If you're ever interested, please reach out. It is a poetry in motion when you get there to really see the thankless work that the people are doing there. We have a team of close to 130 people daily just dedicated to waste management. And so one of the critical things that we've done there as well is we changed our clean belts to dirty belts. So we have 3 dirty belts where we separate absolutely everything. And what this meant for us just is, like I've mentioned, our average organic waste went from 20 tons a month to almost 200. Our recycling also improved. It went from about 120 tons a month to now about 160 tons a month. So there's definitely proof in saying that if you separate out organics, it's the way to go.
Who's got a business, food business, making food waste? Who makes food waste in a business commercial sense? Do you have any idea how much you're producing a month of just food or organic material? Okay, so a small restaurant is going to produce about a ton of waste, of food waste a month. A large hotel up to 20 tons a month, just from one entity. An ice cream factory about 1.5 to 2 tons of waste a month. Lots of eggshells. This is a huge proportion of your waste. It can be up to 50% of your waste. And it contaminates everything else. So what you're actually doing when you separate it is you make your whole system more hygienic and much easier to manage for everybody. And there's an amazing tool called Guardians of Grub that has been developed by RAP in the UK, which will show you how to save money. As an entity, as a business making food, it all comes down to your costs. And if you can save that waste and track your waste, you can be more economically viable. Source separating food waste will affect your business, bottom line, and make it more viable. And I will tell you what you are throwing away. Because I'm the person that sees the 500 apples that have gone in the waste, that are perfectly edible. I have to see that waste. And so we do give feedback back to you as the customer, as the waste generator, to come back and say, this is what you're throwing back. Why have you thrown away 30 perfectly good rolls, hamburger rolls? What is the reason? And you track it back. And that is where source separation comes in, when it makes a food business more economically viable. And we save the planet at the same time, and we extract those nutrients, put it back into the soil, grow more organic food for that food security.
Just feeding the 9,000, doing the 9,000 staff meals per month, we saw at least 3.5 tons of food that would have gone to land waste, which started to feed our staff. And they say charity starts at home, so I think it's a big thing looking at food security in our country, at least making sure that the staff that we've got working at the CTRCC, who also come from vulnerable communities, have got something in their stomachs when they're serving these people. Also, I mean, we do all the other things that everybody does. You've sort of touched on them. I mean, our used cooking oil goes for making biodiesel. Our fat track waste, which was a new one for me in the last year, we send that for composting as well, and apparently it makes great compost. We are in the planning stages and putting together our own garden at the CTRCC. We've got on the rooftop of CTRCC 2. So my long-term goal is to have that compost that we're making with our fat track waste come back into our own garden, and we're using that for our garden as well. And I think we haven't looked at doing composting. We've looked at maybe biodigesters and things like that, but we haven't sort of got into that yet. I think it's doing the small things properly now and just doing small steps at a time until you get all the small steps will eventually add up to something big. It sounds silly as I said, but you've got to start somewhere. Thank you.
Our mandate is to manage the city's waste in partnership with all the stakeholders, including yourselves, business, residents, etc. Really, everybody plays a part. So just a quick history. As you are probably aware, most waste always used to be landfilled, which is, I think, in 100 or 200 years when they come and have a look at our landfills, they'll be like, why were they just throwing their resources into a hole? Honestly, I mean, that seems really silly. But it is still the general practice in many parts of South Africa. And that creates a bit of a problem with organic waste, because apart from all the things that my valued panelist colleagues have already said, organic waste creates methane in the landfill, which is about at least 20 times more potent than carbon dioxide in terms of climate change. And I was reminded this morning when I was preparing another presentation that the World Economic Forum, in their global risk reports, has put the top 5 risks, long-term risks, as environmental, and one of those being climate change, and that comes from my colleague Sam from Green Cape, who I think is here today. So it's a global risk, climate change and having organic waste in landfills. Apart from the fact that it fills up the landfills, and we are actually running out of landfill space, this is a bit of a challenge because it quite often takes about 20 years to develop a new landfill. So us in the city are very keen on diverting waste from landfill, because our landfill space is very precious and we have to preserve it, as well as the fact that globally, nationally, internationally, there is a realization, slowly the pennies are dropping and we're realizing that actually we need to live more sustainably. So what that translates into is a lot of targets around diverting waste from landfill. So we have a lot of targets nationally as part of the National Waste Management Strategy. And the one I'm particularly going to mention is that the provincial government, a couple of years ago, included in their Western Cape Waste Management Plan that the Western Cape needs to divert 50% organic waste from landfill by 2022, which is already passed, and 100% by 2027. That is quite a scary target for all of us, including me and you guys. In the city, that target has translated to a restriction at one of our 2 landfill sites, which the province manages the license for. So we really have to take this quite seriously, all of us. So what is the city's role in this move from putting all the waste in a landfill to actually getting it into the economy, where it's either is going to feed people or is going to go into animal feed or create compost which feeds the soil. Basically all the things that you can do with organic waste that are not landfill are very positive and very good for the ecosystem. Most of them. You can also turn it into energy through anaerobic digestion. We as a city are an implementer because it is our role to collect and manage the waste from the residents of the city. And in that space, we are starting to do various things. Everything takes very long in government, unfortunately, but we're slowly getting to start things. So we have, for example, since about 2016, been distributing free home composting containers to residents, because it just kind of brings down the barrier a little bit to composting. If you think about, I must create a compost heap from scratch, nobody's going to do that unless you're a real greenie. But if I give you a free container and it makes it easier, it makes it a little bit more palatable. And I think I was never used to compost until I got my container, and then I realized, it actually makes it easier. So we've distributed about over 50,000 of those so far, and we should be doing more, which is the budget I keep asking my colleagues for. We have started trialing different kinds of separation at source of organics in different sectors. So, for example, the one sector is the informal traders. We've realized that a lot of the informal traders in Cape Town have unfortunately got very little way to preserve the fruit and vegetables that they sell. And that's another discussion for another day. Maybe the systems that they work in can be changed. But for now, they end up with a lot of wastage of the fruit and vegetables that they sell. And we have seen in the trial we've done with them, which is still very small, that they are very willing to separate the organic waste, and we can pick it up for composting, which is very exciting, because one would think the informal traders would not be interested, but they actually can do it, and they are.
With my V&A hat on, I invite you, if you're part of our community and you've not implemented efficient waste management strategies yet, reach out to our team. We're here to assist. And on a personal note, I invite you to just drink regular water. It doesn't need to taste like lemon or cucumber. You're not going to die. And if you do prefer lemon and cucumber in your water, then